En la W, una historia.
He stood for everything I wanted to be if I was going to be successful. Look, deep down, we all wanted to be Clive Davis.
The greatest record man of all time.
The one, the only, Mr. Clive Davis.
Janis Joplin,
Paul Simon, Miles Davis,
Bruce Springsteen,
Aretha,
The Grateful Dead,
Carlos Santana,
Tony Braxton, TLC, Usher,
Lou Reed, Billy Joel, Maroon 5,
Whitney Houston,
Alicia Keys.
It's all about one thing. Is the song good enough? And that's how he gets off.
He had a reputation for having the golden ear.
He would take an artist and a song and say, you should do this song.
And every time he submits one, I say, I don't think that's a good song at all. I think you're crazy. And he's always right.
Clive was the first guy that took us seriously.
He knew he was hearing a new sound.
There was a hip-hop revolution.
What do you look for in an artist? Well, you either got it or you don't have it. She's got it.
She got it. Wait till you hear her.
Here's Whitney Houston.
There are just a few artists that defined his career, but invariably people talk about Whitney.
7 #1 singles, tied the Beatles record.
It went bananas.
Her version of the Star-Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl is such an all-time classic. Nobody comes even close.
There was unprecedented success. And then, of course, the downfall.
Clive really has a weakness for artists. It all stems from that authentic love of music.
Everybody's searching for a hero.
That range of Kenny G to the Notorious B.I.G. That's a distance.
He kind of has a certain movement that he does with his finger when it's coming to the climax.
You talking about the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. He's made the soundtrack for our lives.
Y hasta ahora es un placer estar en su bellísima casa en la isla de Lido con el señor Clive Davis en un día lleno de sol, lleno de palmeras, pero sobre todo de el honor de permitirnos estar aquí con él. Mr. Davis, welcome to our show.
It's so nice to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm very happy. I have been waiting for this time many years. It's an honor.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Davis, if this interview works okay, and I hope will works okay, I want to be in your 90th birthday. Are you planning a big party?
I am planning a milestone party, yes, in New York, and I am looking forward to it.
With all your friends?
With all my friends,
okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Davis, weakness for the music. Whitney Houston say that. Mr. Davis has a special relation with music, but you are a lawyer. How and when you discovered that you have this weakness at when they say about music? That relation, when it started?
It all happened by accident. Never in my wildest imagination did I think that I would be in music. I had the normal listening as a teenager. I did study law. My parents died when I was a teenager, so I had no money, and I looked for a profession to get me out of the economic bind that I was in. But I became a lawyer for Columbia Records, the head of their legal area, and overnight one day, I was made head of Columbia Records, and never did I think I had an ear. Never did I think that I would get into music, but I did find myself at the Monterey Pop Festival, and I didn't know they were going to be showcasing undeveloped new talent, but they did. And in the afternoon, I saw Big Brother and the Holding Company featuring Janis Joplin, and I learned I had a natural gift that I never, ever anticipated, because I was blown away by the charismatic Janis Joplin. I signed her, and then quietly over the next few years I signed Blood, Sweat, and Tears in Chicago and Santana. And when they all came through, when they all broke, and I knew I was in the cusp of a whole revolution in rock music that got me into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I began, at least for talent, I began to realize that even though I don't read music, I might have an ear for music.
Let me do a very, very fast and short translation. Grace, un resumen ejecutivo de todo lo que acaba de hablar el señor Davis.
Claro que sí, Julio. Mire, Julio le pregunta inicialmente por su cumpleaños 90 que se acerca. Él dice que está planeando una gran fiesta en Nueva York, que está muy emocionado porque van a estar todos sus amigos. Y Julio le pregunta por esa relación especial con la música, lo que Whitney Houston llamaba una debilidad por la música. Y dice que todo pasó por accidente. Nunca se imaginó que tendría una carrera musical. Él, como adolescente, escuchaba música normal, estudió de hecho Derecho. No tenía dinero porque sus padres murieron cuando él era un adolescente, entonces estaba buscando una profesión para salir adelante económicamente. Posteriormente logró ser abogado de Columbia Records, estaba en la parte legal de allí, y posteriormente fue presidente, la cabeza de Columbia Records. Nunca se imaginó esto, pero finalmente fue a un festival, al Festival de Pop de Monterrey, donde descubrió a Janis Joplin. Se dio cuenta que ella tenía un carisma muy especial, que era una artista absolutamente especial, carismática, así que firmó con ella, y en los próximos años pues firmó con otros artistas como Blood, Sweat and Tears, Chicago, Santana, y me dice que todos ellos triunfaron. Allí se dio cuenta que él tenía un don para esto.
Janis Joplin, and you discover a fantastic voice, but also an artist that could be in the wrong way, because life is make you confused. Did you ever have any suspicious taste that Janis could go in the wrong way and could end her career so young?
None whatsoever. I only knew about Janis that she loved Jack Daniels, Southern Comfort, and she would drink. I never knew anything about her drug
heavy
problems, addiction. I was shocked when I learned that she had passed away. Really something that to this day I can't believe.
Sí, básicamente lo que dice es que no. Sabía que le gustaba el Jack Daniels. Bueno, como nos gusta a todos, pero no tenía ni idea de la parte dura de las drogas que se inyectaba. Salto de Janis Joplin a Whitney Houston. You were the night before Whitney Houston died. You were with her in your bungalow in Los Angeles. There was a big party for you. Big party. 10 years ago in February. And you were informed about what did happen with Mrs. Houston. I think there is an image of your face, something in your face of your sadness and what's going on in your heart. But anyway, you say the show must go. And you went to the party. Where is the strength?
Well, let me just correct a little of the facts. Mm-hmm. Every year, for more than 40 years, I have a party the night before the Grammys, and everybody comes. The heads of every record company, every record label, as well as the movie and music stars. I put on a show. Whitney had done that show at least 8 or 9 times. It was her favorite party of the year, and it meant so much to her. She was there not to perform in LA. She was there to attend the pre-Grammy Gala in my name that I hold every year. And so, yes, she had come to my bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and I had not seen her when she was making the movie Sparkle. So she came and she showed me different parts of the film, played me a record or two of music. I was at the time recording Jennifer Hudson. She looked great. She planned to make another album. That was February. We were talking about an album that we were going to do in August, because she had cleaned the nicotine, because she was a smoker. And through rehab, she had told me that she was battling successfully her drug addiction. So 4:00 of the day of my pre-Grammy Gala, I was informed that she had died. And knowing that this party every year was her favorite party, knowing that everybody in the music community will be there and would be in shock and needed to be close to each other, knowing that Tony Bennett, that the Kinks, that Annie Lennox, all were participating in the same way you don't postpone or cancel the Grammys. In the same way, we and the family did not cancel this pre-Grammy Gala, but turned it into a tribute to Whitney and mourned together this incalculable loss.
But where in that point is the strength to continue? Just thinking in the show must go, the show always must go?
It wasn't a tribute to the show. Yes, you could say it was in the tradition of the show must go on. Whitney and the family knew that the music in honor of Whitney should go on. And it was important for the community. I'm looking and seeing Diana Ross there and Jamie Foxx and Alicia and Puffy, P. Diddy and everybody there. They needed to be near each other. So the evening was turned into a tribute to Whitney.
Efectivamente, esa reunión pasó en su bungalow en Los Ángeles. Ella se estaba recuperando de una limpieza de nicotina para grabar un disco en agosto con el señor Davis, y al otro día, a las 4, fue informado de la muerte. Y sí, los Grammy no se suspenden. Esta gala tenía Grace. Usted escuchó a la gente que estaba en la gala, ¿no?
Sí, señor. Tenía invitados de alto nivel como Alicia Keys, Jamie Foxx, Diana Ross. Entonces nos dice que sabiendo que estaba toda esa gente y también pues ejecutivos de la música, pensó que era mejor convertir esta gala en un tributo a Whitney. Fue algo con lo que estaba de acuerdo su familia, porque no era un honor o homenaje al show, era un homenaje a Whitney Houston, y sabía que Diana Ross, Puffy, Jamie Foxx, todos deberían estar cerca unos a otros esa noche.
Ana, yo quisiera que le hiciera a usted esta pregunta para que la entendiera muy bien. Él era el mejor amigo de Whitney Houston, era su padrino, era su protector, su mentor, en una etapa muy difícil de ella. ¿Él creía que ella ya estaba limpia?
Mr. Davis, you were Whitney's best friend, her mentor. You were there for her. At that point, did you believe that she was already clean? Did you believe that she had been able to overcome that drug addiction?
When I met with her in my hotel bungalow, yes, I would have to say I believed that rehab, or certainly wanted to believe, but everything I saw was that the rehab had enabled her to conquer her drug addiction, yes. So that there was certainly no sign. It was 48 hours before her death. At that 2-hour, 3-hour get-together, there was no sign that she was still addicted. Obviously, you just converse with someone, you listen to music. I was recording Jennifer Hudson, and I was playing her some of the early takes of what Jennifer had recorded she was so looking forward to her future. She was so proud that she felt that she had conquered her cigarette smoking addiction, because she always said, I'm going to cut down. I said, it's like you're a Stradivarius. You don't fool around with that. Your voice must be kept pure. And she finally showed me that she had gone to a dental surgeon who had taken away the nicotine on her throat, and she sounded good, and she really was planning an album to begin in August, and we collaborated always together on every song, other than I Will Always Love You from The Bodyguard. We collaborated on every song since 1983, when I signed her, and 1985 was the year of her first album. So, yes, I was shocked at her passing, and you realize, I had always, not always, but when she and I talked, as my documentary on Netflix called Clive Davis, The Soundtrack of Our Lives, as that documentary points out, when it became inescapably clear that this drug addiction was something she could not battle and win, I did meet with her. I did speak with her a few times, and I told her, every bit of history tells one you never beat a drug addiction unless you give it up voluntarily. And at the time when I met with her, she did not feel ready to give it up. She was always coherent with me. She was always on top of her game, knowing that she'd meet with me, or she really cherished, as I did, our relationship. But let me state clearly, you don't win the battle against drugs unless you give it up totally. And so sadly, it befell Whitney.
Pues Grace, lamentablemente, el señor Davis creyó que sí, por el tema de la nicotina, de que había dejado el cigarrillo, pero estaba equivocado el señor Davis. Ella no se había desenganchado, Grace.
Sí, señor, nos dice que no vio ninguna señal de que no hubiese superado realmente esa adicción. Él se vio con ella 48 horas antes de su muerte, estuvo junto con ella en una reunión de 2-3 horas y pues no pudo haber ninguna señal. Incluso le mostró el trabajo que estaba haciendo con Jennifer Hudson, algo que había grabado, y ella se mostraba muy orgullosa, mirando al futuro, orgullosa precisamente de lo que usted mencionaba, Julio, y era que había dejado de fumar, porque siempre decía que lo iba a hacer por el bien de su voz, y finalmente había dicho que había ido donde un doctor que le quitó esa nicotina de la garganta y sonaba muy bien, así que estaba planeando un álbum para agosto. Ellos colaboraron juntos en todo, en todas las canciones desde 1983, que fue cuando firmó con ella, y nos dice que, como muestra en su documental, pues nunca fue claro para él que ella no había superado esa adicción a las drogas.
Es tan importante el señor Davis que habla de Jennifer Hudson. Curiosamente, esa mujer termina representando en el cine a otra artista de él, Aretha Franklin, en la película Respect. La música contemporánea, the contemporary music, is built, in my opinion, in 3 names. Berry Gordy from Motown, your friend Ahmed Artegun, who is not anymore with us, and you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the story of the last 50, 60 years. They were your friends, but also your competitors, good friends.
Yes.
Did you oftenly be together for a lunch, for a party, for a dinner, the three of you?
Actually not. Not there's any reason for it. Berry Gordy lives in Los Angeles. He came every year, does come every year to my Grammy party. And I just did a virtual Grammy party last year which will be streamed on Paramount Plus in about a few weeks. And he and I met, and we had a long chat. There's tremendous mutual respect there, as there was with Ahmet. But we were competitors. I wasn't really a competitor of Berry Gordy. He preceded me. I didn't really get actively in the signing game until Janis in 1967. Berry with Motown was a household name by that time. Ahmet and I competed without question. Yes, we went after a number of the same artists, but it was respectful competition.
¿Qué dijo de estos dos amigos, el señor Artegún y el señor Gordy?
Bueno, que sin duda eran competidores, no solían salir a tomarse algo ni a cenar, Julio, porque pues competían unos con otros. Había mucho respeto entre los tres. Berry vivía en Los Ángeles, por eso no se veían con frecuencia, pero va a su fiesta de los Grammys todos los años. Él hizo una fiesta virtual el año pasado y Berry estuvo ahí, incluso va a salir en Paramount Plus, va a salir esa fiesta y tuvieron una charla bastante extensa en esa fiesta virtual. Hay un respeto mutuo, al igual que con Ahmet Ertegun, pero eran competidores a la larga. Julio nos dice que Berry ya estaba allí en el panorama desde mucho antes que él entrara a firmar en 1967 a su primera artista, pero sí, competían con mucho respeto.
Janis Joplin, Bruce Springfield, the Bee Gees, Dionne Warwick, Elton John, The Carpenters, Blood, Sweat and Tears, Chicago. La lista is very, very big list inventory. But there is something special for us, for this audience, that I would love to ask. Carlos Santana is the only Latin, I think, where you have been working and has been your friend for 50 years. How did start that relation with Carlos?
That relationship with Santana was a competitive one with Ahmet Ertegun because he saw them before me. I got a call from, at the time, a very famous record man and promoter, Bill Graham, who owned the Fillmore East in New York and the Fillmore West in San Francisco. And he said, Clive, I'm going to manage an incredibly hot Latin group that I think is so special. I urge you to fly out to San Francisco. And I did, and I witnessed the audition of the Santana band. They were combining jazz with fusion and with rock and with blues in the most unique way. Only years later did I find out, in my documentary, you will see Carlos saying, the group were attracted to Atlantic Records and whom they were working for in blues and R&B music and rock. But Carlos said, I had an immediate connection with Clive, so that you actually see footage of where he played badly for Ahmet when Ahmet auditioned that group. I mean, really, he was like, use the word soporific. He was sleepy. And then you see him playing for me. He had that footage, and it's electrifying. And so I signed Santana, and we were to enjoy Black Magic Woman, Evil Ways, Oye Como Ma. One great hit after another, multi-platinum, one of the very earliest rock groups to go multi-platinum. So we had a wonderful relationship. But then when one's life doesn't go, let me tell your audience briefly, one's life doesn't go up, up, up. Notwithstanding my signing and the true list is Blood, Sweat and Tears, Chicago, Santana, Earth, Wind and Fire, Springsteen, Billy Joel.
Simon and Garfunkel.
I worked with Simon and Garfunkel. I didn't sign them, but I worked with them. I picked Bridge Over Troubled Water as their single, which to this day shocks both of them. But life doesn't go up, up. And so not to keep mentioning, but as the documentary shows, you've got to be resilient. You've got to come back from either crises or the inevitable ups and downs of life. And when there was suspicion of payola in the record industry, going back to 1973, I was let go because they could not afford, not because there was any evidence, but they could not afford, if Columbia was ever involved with it, their broadcast licenses for CBS. A year and a half later, total explication, total vindication. My documentary shows a check of $1 million I got from Columbia and CBS at the start of Arista Records, my brand new company that I started from scratch. Fast forward, now that year was mid-1970s. Fast forward to the year 1998, late 1998, early 1999. I had not seen Carlos for 20 years. And he called me and he said, I'm playing Radio City Music Hall and we haven't seen each other, but you've got to come see me. And of course I went and I saw Carlos as dazzling as the virtuoso that he had always been, with a relatively young rock band right behind him. And there was, audience was of all ages. So I said, you know, with the growth in the Latin population of America, and they're more and more diversifying their musical taste, I got together with Carlos, and we laid out the blueprint for the plan of what became the great Supernatural album. I said, Carlos, you have half of it, and you do whatever music you would like. And I asked you to give me 6 songs, and I will find that material organic to you that we need, because he had come to me. He said, my kids want to hear me on the radio. They were too young. They weren't even alive when we first worked together. So yes, picture this. 2 men who had not been involved together musically for a good 20 years, okay? And we got together, and I did put together the song with Pete Ganbarg, Smooth, and brought in Rob Thomas, got together with Wyclef, and we did Maria Maria, and introduced this new music at this pre-Grammy Gala that I've referred to earlier. Word spread that Carlos Santana was back. And as Ahmet Ertegun said one day in presenting me with the New York Grammy Heroes Award, he said, Clive, my biggest admiration, including all the artists you work with and sign, was that here you get back together with Carlos Santana, then in his 50s, and he doesn't sing, and yet the 2 of you create history with winning 8 Grammys for Best Album of the Year, Record of the Year. Supernatural is now among the top 10 best-selling albums of all time.
Ever. Pues 2 canciones, 20 años después de haberse conocido, vuelven a hablar y sale ese disco Supernatural que hace historia. Y él escogió esas 2 canciones que fueron Smooth, María María, entre otras. Y sale esta locura y es uno de los 10 mejores discos de la historia, de los más vendidos. Y bueno, Grace, un resumen de lo que dijo antes sobre cómo arranca esa relación con Carlos Santana, después de haberlos tenido a todos.
De hecho, poder firmar a Carlos Santana fue un reto porque ya Ahmet lo había visto antes que él, entonces fue muy competitivo. Bill Graham lo llamó y le dijo, tienes que ir a San Francisco a ver a Santana, y pues lo vio y fue absolutamente electrizante, le encantó. Después él supo, como se ve en el documental, que Carlos tuvo una conexión muy grande con él y no con Ahmet, así que tocó pésimo para Ahmet y con él tocó muy bien, así que firmaron y ahí comenzó esa carrera. Sí, ahí comenzó esa relación.
Él acaba de decir que pues él ha escogido algunas canciones como estas de Santana, y ahí viene una pregunta que yo no sé si él va a reconocer de su vida. You decide Bridge Over Trouble, and that's not what was not the record, the single that they want to do it, and you say, I want Bridge Over Trouble. No, it's too slow, it's too romantic. I want Bridge Over Trouble, and was a success. Marvin Gaye produced one record, What's Going On? And Berry Gordy say, I don't like that record, and was the #1 record of Motown Records ever against Berry Gordy. Can you recognize in this interview one mistake that you made in any song that you say, I don't want that song, and was a big success?
Okay, it wasn't really a song, so that you would think after all these years that someone would come forth with a song, but there are two artists that I remember that I didn't sign, both of whom had success. So the one artist who interviewed me, who was totally different from any other artist performing, and I don't remember the songs that they played at the audition, but I, with every record company president or A&R head in America, did pass on Meatloaf with Bat Out of Hell. And, of course, he had a great voice, but an unlikely candidate, and yet he overcame that being unlikely. So that album, Bat Out of Hell, and perhaps the follow-up were incredibly meaningful. It wasn't that, like with Bruce Springsteen or others, that 50 years later they're still performing, not because of Hell, but it wasn't that there were 10 great albums or 5, but I did. And the other one, if you have time, has a story attached to it. I would say from a long-term point of view, from an artist point of view, vividly in any interview, the biggest artist, or who turned out to be the biggest artist that I ever passed on, was John Cougar Mellencamp. And when he auditioned for me, he appeared to me to be too close to Bruce Springsteen, the great Bruce Springsteen, whom I did sign. But it was only maybe 10 years ago that I was at a dinner for Jan Wenner, the head of Rolling Stone magazine, the founder of Rolling Stone magazine. And we were at a dinner the night before he was being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I was standing with Bruce Springsteen. There were only about 50 of us. And John Mellencamp, and Jackson Browne, and Don Henley of the Eagles. And an announcement came over the loudspeaker that we should sit down and have dinner with whoever was next to us. So, okay, picture the dinner with those people. On my left was Bruce Springsteen, on his left was John Mellencamp, then Jackson Browne, Don Henley. And they were discussing which of those artists had ever auditioned or worked for me. And I looked at Mellencamp, I said, John, I got to tell you, it's eerie, because the reason I passed on you is because Bruce, who's sitting between us, I thought you were too close musically to him. And he said to me, and I don't think I've told this story before, not in my book, and it's not in my documentary, but he said, Clive, I would say about 10 weeks before I auditioned for you, I had never written a song, I had never done any work solo. I was in a cover band in Las Vegas. A cover band means they only performed hits by other artists. I was the vocalist of a cover band in Vegas, and David Bowie's manager came to see that, and he got me on the side at the end, and he said, look, if you leave that band and go out on your own and start attempting to write, you're such an amazing singer, I will manage you, and I will get you to audition for the top people in music. He said, I did that. I left the band immediately. I then began writing. But Clive, he called me 8 weeks after I had begun writing. I was not the Jack and Diane great writer or what people, what I've grown into and are being evaluated on. He said, my hero was Bruce Springsteen. You were right. You were right in saying this John Cougar, he's too close to Bruce Springsteen. At that stage of my life, I was. So anytime you tell the story of your passing on me, you've got to include what I'm just telling you. So there you have it.
Bueno, es la primera vez que cuenta lo que le pasó con dos artistas, ¿no, Grace? Le pregunté en qué había fallado, con cuál se equivocó. Dijo, no me equivoqué con una canción. Me equivoqué con dos artistas, dos que los dejé pasar y después fueron muy importantes. Y uno de ellos no lo firmó porque le parecía que sonaba igual a otro que él tenía, a Bruce Springsteen. Y dijo, usted canta igual. Es el caso de John Cougar. Y el otro creo que fue Meat Love, me pareció.
Sí, señor. Era Meat Love, el otro que no quiso firmar y no seguir adelante. También reconoce que cree que se equivocó con él, porque pues sí, era un artista diferente a todos. Le tocó en su adición y todo, pero nos dice que no se conectó con él, no se conectó con Meat Love. Y pues el caso que usted ya menciona de John Cougar Mellencamp, que dice que se parecía mucho a Bruce Springsteen.
Pero después, juntos, en una comida, se lo dijo en su cara. Se lo dijo en su cara.
Se lo dijo en su cara y él le confesó que tenía razón, porque solo llevaba 8 semanas escribiendo. Él no había escrito nada antes, no había hecho mucho, porque él estaba como cantando en una banda en Las Vegas que solo hacía éxitos de otros artistas, y llegó el manager de David Bowie a verlo y le dijo, pues sal de esa banda y comienza una carrera como solista. Yo seré tu manager, te presentaré a los mejores ejecutivos, y le encontró esta reunión con Clive Davis, así que él cuando se presentó solo llevaba 8 semanas haciendo sus propias canciones, así que le dijo que cuando contara esta experiencia pues también relatara que tenía toda la razón, porque su carrera estaba incipiente en ese momento.
Y eso no está ni en el libro ni en el documental. Esta es la W desde, estamos en la habitación del señor Davis. Una ventana nos deja ver un paisaje maravilloso de estas islas que quedan en el área del Venetian Causeway. Ana, el señor Davis.
Julio, en el documental se habla mucho de Barry Manilow y lo complicado que era para él, porque era un intérprete muy famoso, pero él quería escribir canciones y quería cantar sus canciones. Y yo quiero preguntarle al señor Davis cómo manejaba él eso, cómo le dice una...
¿Cómo le decía que no?
Exacto.
Usted cante, pero no escriba.
In your documentary, Mr. Davis, there's a part about Barry Manilow. I mean, he was a great interpreter. You had made him a huge star, but he wanted to sing his songs. How do you sit in front of an artist and you tell him, is that your songs are just not good enough?
In the case of Barry, I didn't say your songs were not good enough. There were other artists in my career, Taylor Dane, who had a great career of being a great interpreter. Tell It to My Heart, Love Will Lead You Back. And they succumbed to the temptation of writing their own songs, and they were not a great writer, they were a great singer. Some of the greatest have refrained from that. I'm talking of Whitney when she became big, and she said, oh my God, Mariah is co-writing, Janet Jackson is co-writing, should I write? I said, I would never say you can't write, Whitney, but the standard of the greatest love of all, or I will always love you, or saving all my love for you, you've got to be able to write as good as the material we're getting. She never brought the subject up again. In the case of Barry, he wrote well, but he didn't write enough singles. In those days, a pop artist would come with 3 albums a year, which would mean for him to go platinum, multi-platinum, he would really have to write 6, 7, 8 pop hits a year, and that was too much. So I said, when I first began working with him, and it became the first record ever released on Arista Records, the first artist I worked with was Barry Manilow. And I didn't feel the songs at that time. There was a big hit launching single. And so I gave him the song Mandy. And it went to number 1. And he won 2 Grammys, nominated for 2 Grammys. And so when that was such a big success, Barry gave me 2 songs on every future album that we worked on together, so that although he did write This One's For You, he wrote One Voice, he wrote Copacabana, and he is a good writer, and he is in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. But to supplement that, and to become the greatest in America adult contemporary performer of all time with huge top 40 hits, I did bring to him I Write the Songs and Weekend in New England and Can't Smile Without You, I Made It Through the Rain, Looks Like We Made It. So we combined together from material that I presented to him, plus the songs that he wrote, into this career where he's still headlining, all these years later.
Grace, muy resumida la historia de estas canciones de Barry Manilow, aunque él nunca se atrevió a decirle que no escribiera, pero nos explica por qué.
Sí, él dice que Barry escribía de hecho bien, pero no hacía suficientes sencillos. Un artista en la época tenía que sacar 3 álbums al año y para llegar a platino tenía que hacer 6 o 7 u 8 hits al año. Eso era mucho. Entonces empezaron a combinar trabajo de Barry con canciones que él le llevaba y de hecho le presentó Mandy, llegó a la número 1, estuvo nominada a 2 Grammy y después Barry le dio 2 canciones para cada álbum que hicieran. Y entonces nos dice que escribía muy bien, solo que no era suficiente para la cantidad de sencillos que necesitaban para llegar a lo más alto.
En el documental, un competidor y amigo de él, Jimmy Iovine, dice que al final todo se reduce a una canción, si la canción es buena, si la voz es buena y si es emocionante. Eso en principio suena sencillo, pero no lo es. ¿Cuál es la clave?
In your documentary, Jimmy Iovine, another of your competitors, says that it all comes down to a good song, a good voice, and that's it. I mean, it works. It sounds easy and it sounds simple, but what's the key? What's the secret to getting that hit, to knowing that a song can be a hit?
The golden ears. We are with golden ears.
Look, first of all, you get the artist. I know that every one of you out there in the audience would realize you could be a great actress and actor, but if you don't have the right play, if you don't have the right movie, you'll just be recognized for your acting talent, but never achieve what Meryl Streep or Bette Davis or Ingrid Bergman achieved, okay? In records, you could be a great singer, but you need hit songs. Without hit songs, you don't sell many albums. You don't get recognized for your talent in the same way. So that whether it was from scratch, from youth that I signed Whitney or Alicia, who writes all of her great material, or Aretha Franklin, who was the queen of soul when I met her. She had done Natural Woman. She had done Respect. She was the queen of soul, but she was nearing 40. And the question is, could she have hits again? The same with Dionne Warwick. I understand that many of you have heard Burt Bacharach and his wonderful writing career, and he wrote, with Hal David, those classics for Dionne Warwick. So she had Walk On By and Alfie and Do You Know the Way to San Jose? But then when she and Burt stopped working for a while together, she did not have a hit. But I believed in the timeless voice of Dionne Warwick. And so I signed her right after the Manilow few hits. And with I'll Never Love This Way Again, and with Deja Vu and Heartbreaker, and That's What Friends Are For, we enjoyed many years of great success. So first you start with the talent. If the talent is special and unique, that's a necessity. Then you start what material. And for a career like Santana, like these artists that have gone into 3, 4, 5 decades, they are peerless. Carlos is a peerless, dazzling virtuoso. And so you need both. And then you need not only that, because a number of these early hits that I gave to Barry Manilow had been out before, but not arranged right, not arranged in a manner to bring the record home. So I would listen to albums that had been done and say, oh my God, that's a great song, but it should have been done this way or that way or this way. And so you need a combination of great talent, great arrangement, and great production. And then you get the benefit of a hit record.
Grace, muy brevemente para que hagamos la última, the last question con Alberto.
Claro que sí. Mire, Félix, primero es el talento, conseguir a alguien especial. Luego es conseguir el material adecuado, las canciones que van a llevar a esta persona a la fama, porque sin una buena canción no se va a dar a conocer. Y no solo eso, sino también se necesita una buena producción y arreglos.
Mr. Davis, happy birthday anticipated.
Happy birthday anticipating, are saying my friends from Colombia.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Alberto, hágala en español que Ana se la traduce.
Ok, quisiera saber qué recuerdo tiene del último concierto de el Great Lawn en Central Park de Nueva York. ¿Qué recuerdo tiene de ese fantástico concierto que tuvo el problema de interrumpirse por el huracán?
What do you remember? What memory do you have of that last big concert in Central Park, in the Lawn in Central Park that had to be interrupted? But what memory do you have from that fantastic, big concert in Central Park?
I have a very vivid memory of that special night. It was organized to show that New York City was going to be back as close to normal after the COVID as possible, and that Broadway was reopening theaters and many restaurants. So I produced this concert on the Great Lawn of Central Park. I had the most incredible array of artists who, based on our relationships, had agreed to perform, and it was filled to the 60,000 seat standing maximum that we had, and the weather was good at the beginning. So opening was the great New York Philharmonic Orchestra with a dazzling female conductor. No one was expecting at this concert a 75-member New York Philharmonic, and they were fabulous. And they stayed on, quote, stage on the Great Lawn. And they accompanied Andrea Bocelli. And Bocelli did 2 songs that were incredible. And they stayed on the stage again and Jennifer Hudson came and did Nessun Dorma, the great opera classic that Aretha did when Pavarotti was stricken at the Grammy Awards years before, and a great legend story. And Jennifer did Nessun Dorma with the New York Philharmonic. But then I had hip-hop. I had LL Cool J and Busta Rhymes and Reverend Run and a number of hip-hop artists perform with each other, different, not the hits, but just interfacing one against the other, almost in a live version of Versus. And I had Santana, with Rob Thomas doing Smooth and Maria, and we really had a number of great artists performing. It was going beautifully. The audience was screaming one after the other. And
Maluma.
Yes, and he was right there ready to perform. They could not wait for him to perform. Barry Manilow was on stage, had just begun his song, and the rain came.
Yeah.
And it just never stopped. So picture the stage waiting to perform. Patti Smith, Bruce Springsteen, Paul Simon, The Killers, all of these artists waiting to perform. And regretfully, it's part one that will forever remain in my memory. And a special night it was, really reopening New York.
Alberto se emocionó muchísimo con la pregunta porque tiene muy vivo el recuerdo en su mente de todo lo que pasó y pudo haber pasado. Grace, rápidamente, era la Orquesta Filarmónica, 75 músicos, Jennifer Hudson, bueno, la lista estaban todos hasta que llegó la lluvia, cuando estaba cantando Barry Manilow, dice, ¿no, Grace?
Sí, señor, cuando estaba ahí en tarima Barry Manilow, la noche se complicó porque empezó a llover, y nos dice que era una noche muy especial porque era la reapertura de Nueva York. Esa era la idea de este concierto, y por eso convocó todos estos grandes nombres y grandes artistas, 60,000 personas. Andrea Bocelli hizo 2 canciones increíbles, Jennifer Hudson, Nessun Dorma, LL Cool J, Busta Rhymes, Rev Ram, Santana hizo Smooth y María. Iba muy bien, la audiencia gritaba, estaba emocionada. Maluma estaba listo para salir a tarima, y como nos dice, Barry Manilow estaba allí en ese momento listo en tarima y se tuvo que cancelar por la lluvia. Nos dice que las personas en el público están esperando a Patti Smith, a The Killers, a Paul Simon, todos estos artistas como Bruce Springsteen también.
Todos. Señor Davis, gracias por dejarnos entrar a su casa, a su cuarto, y rescatar un poquitico de una extensa vida por la música. Mr. Davis, thank you very much to allow us to come here to your house, to your room, this beautiful view, and to enjoy your stories. I think we can spend with you weeks listening to experience and all this soundtrack of my life and the life of a lot of people that are watching your documentary on Netflix. And I'm going to ask you for maybe a question with a problem. Which song do you want to hear in this moment to say bye-bye to our audience of this show? Just pick up one song that you like.
I would play Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel.
Ahí tiene, Ludier. Bridge Over Troubled Water. Eso es Simon y Garfunkel. Mr. Davis, I'll see you in your birthday in New York. I don't care if you don't invite me. I will go.
We'll invite you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine.
Y así nos vamos con este puente sobre aguas turbulentas. Es el hombre de la historia, de la banda sonora de nuestras vidas, Clive Davis.